Last session called us to return to God, to place ourselves and our nation under His authority once again. But what kind of nation does God's authority establish? When the Declaration of Independence says, "All men are created equal," what does that mean? When I first arrived in the United States, I was shocked by something I saw every day. I saw CEOs sharing the same office floor with employees. In China, a CEO often works on a separate private floor, sometimes with a shower, private staff, and restricted access. I saw members of Congress and governors living in ordinary neighborhoods among the people they serve. In China, high-ranking officials live in protected compounds, guarded gates, luxury residences, special chefs, special food supplies, all funded by taxpayers. I learned that in America, when leaders get sick, they go to regular hospitals. In China, senior officials go to special hospitals reserved only for them. Even in death, I noticed something striking. Important Americans are buried in simple graves, often in ordinary cemeteries. In China, high-ranking officials have special burial grounds, large monuments, carefully guarded memorial sites. As Americans, you may not even notice this. You are used to it. But I did. I saw something exceptional. The equality practiced in everyday American life is rare in human history. It is difficult to find in many parts of the world. And that made me curious. Where did this come from? There is a deeper root. To understand it, we must go back to 1776 and even further back to Genesis. Let us look at the historical foundation. The phrase, "all men are created equal," appears in the second paragraph of the Declaration of Independence in 1776. Jefferson wrote that all men are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights. Notice the language carefully. Created, Creator, endowed. Those are not secular words. They point upward to God. In the ancient world, equality was rare. Greek philosophers believed some people were natural slaves. Roman society was deeply hierarchical. Slavery was common. Women had few rights. Human worth was tied to status and power. There was no broad belief that every human being shared equal dignity. But the Bible taught something different from the very beginning. The Hebrew Scriptures declared that all humans were made by one Creator. That teaching slowly shaped Western civilization. By the time of the American founding, many colonists were shaped by Christian teaching. Churches were common. The Bible was widely read. The idea that humans had equal moral worth was already planted deeply in the soil. Now we must also face a painful truth. Some of the founders owned slaves. Slavery was a global reality in the 1700s, and it remained a deep moral contradiction. We should not deny it. We should not excuse it. But we must also ask, did the principle of equality justify slavery? Or did it eventually condemn it? The same sentence in the Declaration became the moral weapon abolitionists used to argue against slavery. Frederick Douglass appealed to it. Abraham Lincoln appealed to it. The principle contained within it the seeds of reform. That tension is part of our history. It shows that human beings can affirm true principles and still fail to live them out fully. Which brings us to the Bible. Let us turn to Genesis 1:26-27. I will read from the NIV. Then God said, "Let us make mankind in our image, in our likeness, so that they may rule over the fish in the sea and the birds in the sky, over the livestock and all the wild animals, and over all the creatures that move along the ground." So God created mankind in His own image. In the image of God He created them. Male and female He created them. This is the foundation. Equality begins here. Every human being is made in the image of God. Not some humans, not powerful humans, not wealthy humans. All humans. This is what we call the image of God. It means that every person reflects something of God's nature. Every person has moral value. Every person has dignity that does not depend on wealth, race, or social status. Equality. Equality does not mean sameness. Men and women are different. People have different gifts. Some are strong, some are weak, some are brilliant, some struggle, but their dignity is the same. No one is born to rule over another. When Jefferson wrote, "All men are created equal" in 1776, the world was dominated by monarchies. Kings ruled by what was called the divine right of kings. Authority was believed to flow from God to the king, and from the king down to the people. Hierarchy was assumed. Social rank determined political power. Some were born to rule, others were born to obey. Jefferson shattered that assumption. He made a revolutionary claim. No king is born morally superior to other men. No ruler has automatic authority over others. Created equal rejected a system that had ruled the world for thousands of years. No one receives power simply because of a family name, social class, or a crown. Instead, true authority rests on the equal dignity God gives every person at creation. We all bear His image. Rights like life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness come from God, not from birthright or kings. This truth helped America break free from Britain's monarchy. It laid the foundation for limited government, a government that protects freedom for all people, not just a privileged few at the top. Now let us slow down and face two honest questions. Question 1. If all men are created equal, why did Christians and even some founding fathers support or tolerate slavery? This is a fair and painful question. Christians believe in human sin. That includes Christians themselves. Biblical truth does not erase human weakness. It exposes it. The Bible teaches equality in dignity, but sinful hearts can ignore truth when it is costly. Slavery existed long before America. It existed in Africa, Europe, Asia, and the Middle East. It was woven into the ancient world. By the 1700s, it was deeply embedded in colonial economies. It was treated as normal. That does not make it right. It shows how deep sin can run in a culture. Now consider something important. In Thomas Jefferson's original draft of the Declaration of Independence, he included a paragraph condemning the British Crown for promoting the slave trade. That language attacked the practice directly, but delegates from South Carolina and Georgia strongly objected. Some northern merchants were also involved in the trade. The clause was removed for the sake of unity. The colonies were trying to hold together in the face of war. That removal shows tension. The principle of equality was there. The courage to apply it fully was still developing. Some founders inherited slaves from their families. Slavery was not simply a personal choice in many cases. It was part of the legal and economic structure they were born into. That does not excuse it, but it explains complexity. George Washington, for example, inherited slaves. Yet over time, he grew increasingly uneasy with the institution. In his will, he arranged for his slaves to be freed after his wife's death. That was significant in that era. Change did not come overnight, but it did begin. In 1808, Congress outlawed the international slave trade as allowed under the Constitution. That was an early step. Abolition was a long and painful process that eventually led to civil war. Here is something crucial to understand. America was among the first nations to abolish slavery. This movement did not begin in Africa, Asia, or much of Europe, but took root first in Britain and then in America. It grew out of a Christian moral vision and the conviction God placed on the hearts of believers. In Britain, William Wilberforce fought tirelessly against slavery because of his Christian faith. In America, abolitionists made their case from Scripture and from the very principles of the Declaration itself. And let us not pretend this problem belongs only to the past. Today, there are an estimated 40 to 50 million people trapped in modern slavery worldwide, in forced labor, human trafficking, and child exploitation. In some parts of the world, the problem is growing. American history is indeed exceptional, marked by courage and sacrifice. Our founders were not perfect, but they planted the seeds that would eventually lead to the abolition of slavery. Churches and theologians engaged these issues openly, and more than 10,000 soldiers sacrificed their lives to secure the freedom we enjoy today. Every generation must inherit this moral courage. Now the baton is in our hands. Question 2. How is the equality in the Declaration different from today's equality movement? When many young people today read the phrase, "all men are created equal" in the Declaration, they interpret it as equal outcomes or equal results. This confusion can lead towards socialist or even communist ideas. That is why it is important to clearly understand what the Declaration truly means by equality. The Declaration of Independence teaches that all men are created equal, meaning every person has equal dignity and equal rights. Today's equality movement often shifts the focus. Instead of equal dignity, it emphasizes equal outcomes. Differences in results are often treated as injustice, and the solution becomes greater control by institutions or the state. Equality is redefined from being equal before the law to being equal in results, regardless of choices, character, or responsibility. One example is the push for DEI policies that aim for proportional representation of races in college admissions or corporate hiring. In practice, this means different standards for different racial groups. For instance, some groups, such as Asian, may be required to achieve significantly higher scores to gain admission. The result can be unfair to certain races, even while pursuing fairness at the group level. The difference is foundational. The Declaration's view of equality protects equal opportunity. Today's version can produce injustice in the name of fairness. One begins with God and leads to liberty. The other begins with human desire and often leads to injustice and tyranny. Today we have seen something important. All men are created equal is not a political invention. It is a biblical truth. It begins in Genesis. It rests on the image of God. True equality does not erase differences. It recognizes equal worth while calling each person to responsibility, virtue, and accountability under God.